Penguin Random House Audio presents The Other Family Doctor. A veterinarian explores what animals can teach us about love, life, and mortality. This is the author, Karen Fine. Note to listeners, this program includes a downloadable PDF of additional resources from the book. To my father, who taught me the meaning of family, and my grandfather, the finest family doctor. Chapter 1. It's a Calling. The cat had come with the house. He was a feral black cat that John and Susan, who bought the tidy bungalow in a quiet tree-lined neighborhood, had named Miles. Many people wouldn't have concerned themselves with a stray, especially not when doing so cost them money. But although John and Susan hadn't expected Miles, they accepted him as their responsibility. They had him neutered and vaccinated at a nearby clinic. Miles warmed to his new humans, enjoying their attention, even though he remained wild at heart, preferring to be outdoors most of the time. John and Susan allowed him into the house whenever he wanted, keeping him fed and warm. Slowly, he had become a part of their family. But one chilly afternoon in February, John called me, his voice heavy with worry. He thought Miles might have an infected front paw. It was swollen, he explained over the phone, and Miles was limping. Suspecting an abscess, I told him it might need to be treated at a clinic, but as he and Susan were unable to catch Miles, I agreed to come to their house. I was never happy about using a fishing net to catch a cat. I had learned the technique from another house call veterinarian who specialized in cats and cared for some feral cat colonies. It always felt traumatic, especially when I knew the cats I cared for didn't understand. Still, I kept a fishing net in my car, if only to use as a last resort. This was a last resort kind of case. When I arrived at their home, John and Susan led me to the back bathroom where they'd been able to corral Miles. The poor kitty was petrified from being cooped up, and although he wouldn't allow me near him, I was able to trap him with the net. Wild creatures do not like being confined, and I hoped to be able to release him soon. Remembering what the other vet had taught me, I used the double wrapping method to enfold Miles until he was snug inside the net. My patient scratched and clawed, and I felt his distress. Yet I knew I had to be vigilant not to let him out, or I wouldn't be able to catch him again. This was my one chance to help him. Finally, he settled and became still. Biting my lip in concentration, I gently slid the long handle of the cat net package a few feet along the linoleum floor into the kitchen, where the light was better and I had more room to work. I stood on the handle to hold the net in place. As soon as I looked closely at the paw, I could tell what was causing the limp. Occasionally, a cat's claw will grow long enough to curl around in a circle and continue growing right into the pad, causing pain and often an infection. Miles had a badly ingrown nail which had become embedded in his paw. I would need to trim the nail to relieve Miles's pain and allow the infection to heal. However, I couldn't get to the nail with Miles compressed under the netting. Complicating matters, it was a front claw, close to Miles's sharp set of teeth. In a clinic setting, it would have taken 2 trained professionals using leather gloves to hold Miles so I could trim his nails safely, if it could be done at all. Otherwise, we'd have to anesthetize him. But here, hovering over Miles in the middle of the kitchen, none of those options was available to me. I explained the problem to John and Susan and told them that I didn't know what to do. They looked at me nervously. Although it would terrify Miles to go to a clinic, it would be a good option if I could get him into a carrier. But I doubted I'd be able to do that once I unwrapped him from the netting. And I had no injectable anesthetics with me, as that was not something I used in clients' homes. We had no good options. As I stood there, debating what to do next, this feral cat, trapped in the net, slowly extended the affected paw through the netting. The 3 of us watched, disbelieving, as he spread his toes. We looked at each other, mouths agape and soundless. That old thorn in the lion's paw story was flashing before our collective eyes. As I quickly found my nail trimmers and cut the offending nail, Miles kept his paw completely still. None of us made a sound for fear of breaking whatever spell he was under. At last, I released Miles from the net. He shook himself and headed back outside. His limp was gone. It was impossible to look at Miles, who would surely make a full recovery with the help of some antibiotics, and at John and Susan, who cared so much about this feral cat, and not think about the ways they had agreed to take care of each other and how, because of this, they were all better off. I've been a veterinarian for 30 years. For most of that time, I've had my own house call practice, going inside people's homes to care for their animals, meeting my human clients and animal patients where they live. I've been in hundreds of residences, working at kitchen tables and living room sofas, even in bedrooms and bathrooms. Occasionally, clients seem awkward as they invite me in, apologizing for clutter, dishes in a sink, or an unmade bed. "Don't worry at all," I respond. "No one sees my house." In this book, I'm going to open my door and allow a view into my own home. You may see my clutter, my unmade bed, the dishes in my sink. You may witness how fully I've loved my own animals and how I have struggled personally as well as professionally over the difficulties pet lovers face. And you can discover how much I have learned from my animal family members and patients about life and love and even death. When people ask me when I knew I wanted to become a veterinarian, I tell them I've known my whole life. I've always loved animals. As a child, I drew them with crayons. I read books about them. I pretended to be a dog, a cat, or a horse and favored stuffed animals for toys. Yet one trip stands out in my memory as the moment when I knew I didn't just want to be a vet, but needed to make animals a central part of my life. Although I grew up in Massachusetts, my parents were born and raised in South Africa, and most of my extended family lived there. Holidays were lonely times for us because they highlighted what others had that we did not. While other people had family who visited them, who showered them with presents and hugs, we had only each other. We didn't have pets either, as my mother said she had her hands full, caring for myself and my brother. Then, however, came the opportunity to not only connect with my family, but also to encounter the animals whose company I craved. When I was a child, the fare for an international plane ticket was half price for children under 12. My parents offered my younger brother, Michael, and me each a choice. At age 11, we could either travel to South Africa to stay with family for the summer, or we could save the money for a party to celebrate our bar or bat mitzvah when we turned 13. I immediately chose the trip. I didn't know much about what to expect in Johannesburg when I arrived there in 1978, only that I would get to see my grandparents, aunts, uncles, cousins, and second cousins, many of them for the first time. I imagined what they would be like, these people who looked like me and spoke with accents like my parents. I expected to finally get to see what their lives were like and to be spoiled by my grandparents. What I did not expect was that when I finally arrived, my Aunt Hillary, Uncle Lee, and Cousin Joanne would invite me on their week-long safari vacation to Kruger National Park. Kruger National Park is one of the largest game reserves in Africa. It has a land area roughly the size of Wales, and within its borders lives just about every kind of African animal imaginable: lions and zebras, elephants and giraffes, wildebeests, and antelopes. The night before we left, I was so excited I could barely sleep. Little did I know that this was one of those rare childhood moments when the excitement I felt beforehand paled in comparison to what it was like to experience the real thing. On the appointed day, we piled into the family sedan, the car packed full of food and provisions, and, driving on what I thought was the wrong side of the road, headed north for several hours. As we drove, leaving behind the hustle and bustle of the city, Aunt Hillary explained the rules to me and 4-year-old Joanne. You can't get out of the car.
Sample complete. Ready to continue?